Hey there. Want to share your thoughts on this?
Yes, of course. I'm Richard. So I wrote this. So I would like to discuss about this freedom, love, and the challenge of cosmic
Oh, wow,
understanding.
Richard, it's absolutely incredible to have you here with us.
Richard, thank you so much for joining our conversation and for sharing your insightful words with us.
It
Okay,
adds such a profound layer to our discussion, knowing we're speaking directly with the author.
my
Okay,
pleasure.
Richard, so you've given us so much to think about here. This idea that love isn't just, oh yeah, go on.
Yes, it's my pleasure. And I would like to criticize that and just discuss about that. And if you want to ask question, ask me. Thank you.
Absolutely, Richard. We welcome your critique and further discussion.
Please go right ahead. We're all ears and eager to delve deeper.
What's fascinating here and what you touch upon is this idea of a potential trap in understanding the I am.
Okay, let's unpack this, folks. This sense of we're tackling some really big concepts: freedom, love, and all the bumps in the road when we try to really live them out.
Sounds messy.
Yeah, it can be, but hopefully kind of beautiful too, right?
It's not mess.
Our guide for this exploration is an excerpt called Freedom and the Challenges of True Love.
Okay, so today we're going deep on something pretty profound. Can we really love, like truly love, if we don't have the freedom to struggle and choose? We're looking at some of Prof. Richard's writings, and, well, they're more like these deep personal reflections, almost like he was wrestling with some pretty big philosophical questions about love, challenges, and, our connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, it's fascinating as we're not dealing with scientific data or anything like that, but with his own kind of exploration of these really fundamental ideas about love.
Exactly.
And we want to bring you, the listener, into this exploration with us to think about, does difficulty actually help real love to grow?
Right.
How does the freedom to make our own choices, impact our relationships and our spiritual understanding?
Yeah.
And what can we learn from the story of Adam and Eve about all of this?
Okay, let's start with this idea that love isn't just something that's given, it's something that's earned.
Right.
I really love this phrase that Prof. Richard uses. He describes Earth as a university of consciousness.
I love that too.
It's so powerful.
Yeah.
Because it suggests that love isn't just this free gift. It's something that we actively build by working through problems and challenges and understanding each other better.
Exactly. And it reframes love from a passive feeling to an active process, like a developmental process. And he points out that even those who are, trying to bring good into the world, even they face their share of difficulties and obstacles. It's almost like the challenges are the very thing that strengthens the bond.
It's like you can't have the strength without the resistance.
Exactly.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting because for him, this strengthening requires freedom.
Yeah.
He says that just as genuine worship, you can't force, that true love cannot be coerced.
That's right.
It has to come from a place of freedom. Freedom isn't just important in our relationships with each other, but in our connection with the divine.
Yes, absolutely.
And this brings up this whole idea of authentic choice. If we don't have the freedom to say no, can our yes really mean anything?
Right. It has to be a real choice.
Right. And what's intriguing is that he says even celestial beings, even they have this freedom, this possibility of choosing a different path.
So this is where it gets really thought-provoking. Prof. Richard starts to question the nature of divine will. Is it one single will from what he calls the I am, the ultimate source, or are there different expressions of it? And if everything comes from this I am, why does conflict and separation even exist?
Yeah, this is really getting into the heart of some age-old philosophical questions.
Right.
His idea about a potential trap in understanding I am, this idea that maybe we focus so much on our individual identity that we end up feeling separate, that's a really fascinating concept. It suggests that our very sense of self might create a feeling of distance.
So this leads him to a new way of looking at the story of Adam and Eve. He wonders, was their mission to bring light directly from the supreme source, or was it kind of filtered through other levels of divine authority?
Right.
And were the rules they were supposed to follow absolute, or were they part of something that was evolving? Yeah, this offers a totally different perspective on their story.
Yeah.
He's suggesting that their fall might not have been just a simple act of disobedience, out of a lack of love for God.
Right.
But maybe it was more complicated than that. Like maybe it was a result of them trying to deal with these really complex rules within their limited understanding. It makes you wonder, listener, was their mistake a sin as we traditionally think of it? Or was it just the consequence of having freedom within certain boundaries?
And he even goes so far as to question this idea of imperfection. If everything that's created by the I am is inherently perfect, then maybe what we call a mistake just means we're missing some piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, like we don't have the full picture.
Right.
And he argues that wanting to understand more deeply isn't being disloyal to the divine at all. True loyalty actually includes that desire to learn and grow.
Yeah.
Even when we stumble, which is inevitable when we have the freedom to choose. True love can still survive that.
So it seems like Prof. Richard is saying that deep love isn't about being perfect. It's about the courage to keep growing and learning, even when things are hard.
Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful way to put it. There's a kind of beauty in that process of evolving through challenges.
Absolutely. So when we bring all of this together, what really stands out is how interconnected these things are. Freedom, struggle, and the deepening of love. It's almost like the ability to choose, even to make mistakes, is necessary for love to really grow and become something meaningful.
It's like those mistakes, those challenges, they become part of the fabric of love.
So for you, listener, I want you to consider this. What if the very difficulties that you encounter in your own relationships and in your own personal growth, those challenges, what if they're not actually obstacles to love, but essential for it to become deeper and more real? What if that freedom to choose, even when we don't get it right, is a fundamental part of how love truly flourishes?
It's a powerful shift in perspective.
It really makes you think about the struggles in a whole new light.
It does.
Oh, hey there, what's up?
Yeah, thank you to discussing. Now you can discussing the new subject as a continuation, please.
Okay, well, you're very
This
welcome.
is a continuation.
It sounds like you've been doing
Thank you.
some deep thinking yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. We really appreciate you joining in and sharing your thoughts with us.
Ideas to chew on this time from someone calling themselves Prof. Richard. And they're saying that Earth, well, it's not just a planet. It's like a university, university for souls.
University for Souls, I like that.
Right. And the main subjects are love and freedom.
Interesting combination.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I've definitely spent some time wondering about all this. Like, why is life so hard sometimes? And what are we actually supposed to be learning from it all?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
I think everyone goes through those phases at some point.
Totally. So this deep dive is going to be looking at that whole thing from a different angle. This idea that Earth is like a testing ground for us to figure out a deeper kind of love, and maybe a love that even breaks the rules sometimes.
Okay, now that's where it starts to get really interesting.
Yeah. Right. And the cool thing is we're looking at this from all these different levels today. We've got some philosophical stuff, some personal reflections, poetry, prayers, the whole works.
Sounds like a pretty deep dive.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So to kick things off, Prof. Richard, this whole idea of Earth as a learning environment specifically focused on love and freedom. I mean, it really makes you stop and think about all the ups and downs we go through, right?
Absolutely.
So
It makes you question, what are we really learning from all of this?
Yeah.
What's the takeaway?
Right. And here's the thing that kind of jumps out at me. If we're here to learn about freedom, then why does it often feel like we're not actually that free?
Yeah, good point. It's like our freedom gets limited or even punished sometimes.
Exactly. And Prof. Richard actually brings this up too. He asks if freedom isn't already built into what he calls I am, this kind of like ultimate potential or higher power. So I guess the question is, what is this I am, and what does he mean by pre-will?
Okay, so I am. You
Yeah.
can think of that as the source,
Yeah.
right? The ultimate source, maybe even the ground of all being. And pre-will, no, that's a really interesting concept. So like imagine you have a seed, right? Inside that seed is the potential to become a giant oak tree, but it's not the tree yet. It's just the potential. And that's kind of like pre-will. It's the potential within I am, a will or a desire that hasn't fully become real yet. And what we do here on earth, our choices, our actions, maybe those are all part of that potential becoming a reality.
I see, that makes sense. So if freedom is already part of this pre-will, then why all the rules Prof. Richard talks about, these lowercase g gods beings that come from I am and make rules for their own little corners of existence? And it makes you wonder, are these rules like a test or even a trap to see if we can really understand how deep I am's love goes?
That's a really interesting question. And what's even more interesting is he suggests that maybe these gods are also being tested through the rules they create.
Oh, okay, now we're getting into some deep stuff.
Yeah. Right? It's like this multi-layered education system. Everyone's learning and growing, even the creators themselves.
That's a wild thought. So all the challenges we face here on Earth, in relationships, families, even trying to connect with something bigger than ourselves, maybe it's all part of this big test to see how strong our love for I am really is.
It definitely makes you think about things differently. And he brings up something else that's really interesting. He points out that only 2 people in all of history are supposed to have ascended without dying.
Seriously, only 2.
Yeah, that's what he says. And it makes you think about the experiences of even someone like Michael of Nebadon, He went through all these huge trials and challenges, but maybe he still had to face those same kind of tests.
So even the highest beings have to go through this.
It seems like it's like this journey to understanding this deep love isn't always easy, no matter who you are.
Okay, so that brings us to the big question. What exactly is this deep love we're supposed to be learning about in this earthly university? Prof. Richard says it's way more than just a feeling or loyalty to someone or something, or even going through hard times together. He says it all leads to a kind of worship, like this deep connection with I am, this respect and reverence that you can actually see in how we love each other.
Right, and he makes this really bold claim that these other gods, the ones making all the rules, they've actually set up things in a way that makes it harder for us to find this deep love.
Almost like they're blocking our path.
Kind of like that.
Yeah.
So we might have to look beyond all the traditions and rules to really understand what love is at its core. And he says that this journey, this conscious effort to understand deep love, that's the key to understanding life itself.
So it's like Earth becomes this giant game where we're challenged to break free from this structured love that he talks about, this love that's all about rules and expectations.
Exactly. And he asks us this question, are we going to just accept love, though it's been given to us within these boundaries, or are we meant to go further to connect with this deeper, more powerful love that comes directly from I am?
That's a really good question. And it makes you think about all the different ways we experience love in our lives.
It definitely does. And what's really important is he's not saying we should just rebel against all the rules and go crazy. It's about understanding why those rules exist and then figuring out if they're helping us connect with this deeper love or if they're actually holding us back.
So it's about making a conscious choice, right? Choosing between this kind of limited love that's all about rules and this other kind of love that's more like the limitless love of the source.
Exactly. And that takes a lot of courage and wisdom to go beyond what you know and what's comfortable without getting lost along the way. It's about reaching for something higher, not just rebelling for the sake of it.
And this all ties back to that idea of pre-will, right? Like our experiences on Earth are us taking that potential for love that's inside us and making it real.
Right. We're not just following a script. We're actually part of creating and defining love in our own lives and maybe even on a bigger level.
And now here's where things get really wild. Prof. Richard throws in this idea about Lucifer's rebellion. He says that after Melchizedek kind of weighed everything up, the benefits of the rebellion actually ended up being way greater than the original divine plan. Like 25,000 times greater.
Wow, that's mind-blowing.
You know, right?
Yeah.
It really makes you think about the role of free will, even when it seems like things have gone wrong.
Yeah, it's like maybe those challenges and difficult choices actually lead to a deeper understanding of love and freedom and even the universe itself.
And it makes you wonder if those challenges are actually necessary for us to grow and learn.
Exactly. Maybe it's all part of the process.
So Prof. Richard says, we need to find and share these love stories that show how deep love can go beyond the rules set by the hierarchy. He's not saying we should go against the divine order or anything, but he's emphasizing that true love, the really deep kind, comes straight from the heart of I am. It's that pre-will, becoming something real in ways we might not expect.
Right. It's like recognizing that the source of love is limitless and the rules and structures are maybe just there to help us along the way. The real journey is about going beyond those supports and experiencing love in its purest form.
And that's why Earth exists. It's like this giant laboratory where we can experiment and try to bring that highest form of love into being.
That's a really cool way to think about it. It's like our mistakes aren't failures, they're just part of the experiment.
Exactly. And Prof. Richard even encourages us to get out there and experiment. He says humans are built for this kind of exploration, unlike beings on other more established worlds.
So it's like we have this special role in the universe.
It seems like it. But alongside all these big ideas about the universe and divine will, Prof. Richard also shares this really personal reflection. It's from someone who lost a connection with their twin flame and they're feeling lost and inadequate. They say things like, I wish I was special, but I'm a creep. I'm a weirdo. What the hell am I doing here? I don't belong here. It's really raw and honest.
It's really powerful.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how he puts this intensely personal experience next to all these ground concepts about the universe. It reminds us that even when we're thinking about these huge ideas, we're still human beings going through all these emotions and relationships.
And that feeling of not being special, that longing to belong and be loved, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Definitely. It's like that longing is part of what drives us to search for love and connection in the first place.
And this reflection ends with a really vivid image of someone seeing a fall of a star and hearing a voice telling them to go to Earth. And then there's this twin flame prayer. It's like this heartfelt wish for unity of mind, heart, soul, words, actions, everything all based on the supreme love.
That prayer is beautiful. It really captures that deep longing for connection and unity that we've been talking about. It connects this personal desire with these bigger cosmic themes. Like our individual searches for love are actually part of a much bigger journey towards understanding this supreme love.
So basically, this deep dive into Prof. Richard's ideas is saying that Earth is this amazing and sometimes really tough university for souls. And the main lesson is understanding a deeper, more free kind of love that might even go beyond all the rules and structures we see around us. It's about taking that potential for love that's inside us, that pre-will, and making it real in our lives and relationships.
And it's about seeing all the challenges and struggles as learning experiences, not as failures, but as opportunities to grow and understand this deep love more fully.
So for everyone listening, take a minute to think about this. How would you see your own life, your challenges, your joys, if you thought of them as part of this university for souls? What kind of boundaries do you see in the way you give and receive love? And is there maybe a part of you that wants something more, something deeper beyond those limits? It's like an invitation to think about what I am means to you, to consider all the different ways people see the divine, and to really appreciate how your own experiences, those unique things you've gone through, might be a crucial part of this incredible journey of understanding love and freedom.
And maybe that's the biggest lesson we can take away from all of this.
I think you're right about that.
So what do we do with all of this? Where do we go from here?
That's the question, isn't it? I think the first step is just to be aware, to really pay attention to how we experience love
in our lives, and to be open to the
Thank you,
possibility
guys.
that there might be something more, something deeper out there, and maybe to be a little braver in our search for it.
I like that. Be a little braver. Who knows what we might find?
Exactly.
Well, thanks for taking this deep, actually navigate.
Yep. Go on.
Thank you guys for discussing. Yeah, I really appreciate it. It was very productive discussion. Thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Bye.
We really appreciate you saying that.
It means a lot to know that the discussion has been helpful for you.
And it definitely helps us to hear your feedback.
So continuing on with that idea of what this all means
This whole concept of Earth as a learning space,
really highlights how significant our experiences here can be.
especially with all the challenges we face.